So, I do not know how I've made it so far down this rabbit hole. Why not? Back for this book, 50 pages, super short, but really good. I'm definitely looking forward to more from this series.
Okay, book talk. We need to talk. Really? This? Okay. So let's start with some characters and some plot development. Yeah, sure. Plot. So we start out with Lily, who is our main character, and she is in an abuse plot. So we start out with Lily, who is our main character, and she is in an abusive relationship, and it is very clearly abusive from the very beginning. Her boyfriend is a half-god named Jameis, and there's some confusion about how much power he has. Okay? So, Then there's Esther. Esther is a old god, and she has a son named Jack, also called Evie. So I think that Esther was a reference to Easter, perhaps. Now let's talk about the plot really quickly. I mean, let's see how quick we can make this. So the plot goes with Lily, who is leaving her abusive boyfriend, right? On the first page, right here, on the first page, we have, the first line says, "The vase smashed against the wall behind my head. I forced myself to hold still. Don't flinch. Ignore the sharp bite of the new cut across my cheek. Ignore the blood sliding over my skin." And then, like, 4 lines down, maybe 5 lines down, says, "As if 5 years of faking O's was a streak I wanted to continue," in response to her boyfriend Jameis, like, proposing, I guess, and like asking to get married. So anyway, sounds abusive, sounds crazy, don't want to be there, glad I am not her. Then we go to the next page. "No employer would consider my application. Jameis had shitty aim with priceless vases, but he was descended from the old gods. His family ruled for generations. They've been feared for generations." It's kind of just a little repetitive, and a suggestion there would be Jameis had shitty aim with priceless vases, but was descended from the old gods. His family ruled for generations and was feared just as long. I don't know. Maybe that sounds better. We'll see. What do you guys think? Comment below. So then we have we don't really know where we are. We know that we are in a valley because it says, and who in this valley would let me leave? So, like, that's great. Jameis never hit me before tonight. He's never even raised his hand in a moment of anger, but he has never hesitated to remind me how many people owe him. So, just because something isn't physical abuse does not mean that it is not emotional abuse or coercion, and anybody can be the person who is perpetrating these kinds of things. So let's not encourage that. And I'm glad she's leaving. Let's talk about this further. Then she says, he won't keep me from leaving the tower. Jameis wants me crawling back to him. He wants that submission. So he's very controlling, but he'll let her go as long as she comes back, because she has to come back, I guess. Okay, so what we know about this world is we have old gods, we have a valley, so descriptive, and we have a tower that Jameis lives in, and Jameis's family has like ruled this whole entire space for like, yeah, so we don't know really what this place is other than a valley, so between two mountains, and a tower in a valley. Okay, cool. So get to the top of the tower if there's a flood. Anyway, then middle of page 5, it says, Jameis's people mill in the shadows of the parking garage. I recognize a few who've seemingly wanted to help before, but that wasn't real. No one's coming to help me, or no one's coming to save me. My car is still in its spot. So we have parking garages and we have cars. The lights flash when I click the fob. The engine turns over when I press the ignition. Hubris is one of Jameis's many downfalls. Of course, the tank has drained to just under a quarter. The little red needle on the gauge feels like it's mocking me. He'll let me go, but he won't let me go far. So, very edgy. I like it for like, that would be really fun, edgy fan fiction style stuff, you know? I'm just saying. So then we go on to the next chapter. Just want to say I don't know much about this world so far. I wish there was more world building. So then she decides to escape, and fluff that's really confusing. So in the next chapter she meets Esther, and Lily meeting Esther is a whole thing that we go through. She makes a deal to have Jack, Esther's son's children. So Esther wants grandchildren, and so Lily makes this deal to, yeah. Esther does weird magic, just kind of like poofs her IUD into nothing. So again, so now we know that IUDs are a thing in this world. And then so is being able to just like poof it into some sort of butterfly just flying around. And there's a bunch of butterflies flying around, so then you have to wonder like how many other women's IUDs have just been like pulled out. I don't know. Anyway, that's just a thing. So then we get to the next part where she goes. So it's very confusing. So she goes to the old god, and it's like this giant, she calls it a domain because it like just like magically turns into different things. So like she's in a forest in one part, and she's in like padded rooms with like leather doors and like crazy, you can just go from place to place. So next thing, she's been led by some twinsy girls in cat masks or something who are like jealous of her and like gossipy and never really come up again. Thought there was more to them. I thought there was going to be like anything. I don't know. There was nothing. So that's great. Good writing. Love it. Love it. Anyway, I'm pulled inside the invisible, okay, so let's start over. There's no handle, but when I press against the supple leather, it swings wide, and I'm pulled inside by invisible hands that slam it shut behind me. So this is interesting. There are invisible hands in this place and leather doors, and let's continue. Yeah, so she's like meeting the big fucking girlies in cat masks, and like one's like, "I'm Calico," says the one in black, and she's Minx, and I don't point out that out of the three of us, I'm the one with the least ironic name. And it's just like, that's just kind of like a bitchy attitude. I don't know. Whatever. I guess bitchiness is what they want. So then she has to like put on a mask, and like if she takes off her mask during the entire time that she's there, she won't be allowed to leave. Which kind of reminded me of the Persephone story a little bit. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but yeah, Persephone is definitely like the OG was forced to, yeah, anyway, let's move on. So then there's a bunch of talk about like sacrifices. I don't know. We have Lily meeting Jack, and it starts out just like, hey, what's up? And then they just go at it, and they start with an oral scene. So there we go. We start with oral, and I guess he tastes like fluff, you know, like the stuff, the ejaculate tastes like marshmallow fluff. So there's that too, which just sounds like diabetes. And then he, like, after he gets off, he's like, okay, well, you earned it, you get some too. And his tongue is like rough and stuff like that. And okay, cool. So we know that about that. Then they have a public sex ritual, which is like his version and like the old gods version of like marriage, I guess. So the public sex is really oddly forced for him, which just makes it uncomfortable. He's like, we have to do this. Like, this is mandatory, so everybody knows that you're mine, and it's like ownership. And okay, cool. So we figured that part out, I guess. And he like really doesn't like it. He really does not enjoy public sex. It's made very, very clear, which is just so confusing. And this whole thing is riddled with so much repetitiveness in a not so poetic way. So it's just hard to follow sometimes. Also, we just go from place to place. So we go from the oral scene to the public sex scene by just like going through portal doors. And then we have them go from the public sex to like a nest. And this is like his nest that he lives in. So like the Easter Bunny is Jack, the rabbit man, whose is ejaculate, whatever you want to call it, tastes like marshmallows. And he like sleeps in a nest, so like a bird. So he's like a bunny bird man. Anyway, that's as far as I've gotten there. And then after just like repeated in the nest, okay, this is kind of funny. Let's talk about this for a second. So on page 42, they're like in the nest at this point, and the chapter is called Like Rabbits Do. Okay, that's the second page of the chapter, which is a 1, 2, 3 page chapter if we're being generous with these chapters. Anyway, it says right here, I don't know how much time passes. I lose track of how many orgasms I have, of how many times I cry his name. But at some point, a door forms where once there was only darkness. 4 letters scrawled in neon over top. A tiny part of me no longer wants that exit. Heaven may exist here in this bed, in a pair of strong, furry arms. So it just like keeps going, and like it's the rest of this after that is all just like, I don't want to go, come back to me, you can come back to me, and like blah blah blah. It's like a whole thing. So like, yeah, I guess she's gonna come back to him, but she has to go take the throne from her ex, Jameis. So she goes and gets it, and it's really weird. So she goes, when I get out of bed, it disappears, and Jack does too. Okay, cool. She like kicks Jameis out, and he's like, no, bullshit, blah blah blah. And then she's like, go talk to your great-great-grandmother, Jameis. See the sort of deal she'll make you after all these years you've hid behind the power she never actually gave you. So I'm confused on that, because if it's like a bloodline thing, then technically she didn't give it, but she did, I guess, because like it's a bloodline thing. So if she didn't have the kid that had the kid that was his mom, then like, you see what I'm saying? I don't know. It's whatever. Let's let it go. And that's like on the last page. So there we have it. She kicks him out. And then, yeah, we have the end. Final takeaway from this. So it needs more world building. Definitely needs more world building. It needs a little bit of attention to maybe using different words instead of the same words over and over. That repetitiveness kind of just like kills it a little bit. It's great when it's artistically used, but when it's overused, it kind of defeats the purpose, and that is no longer artistic, I'm sorry to say. And then finally, overall, I kind of got this like it's kind of like pagan in some places. There's a lot of like, obviously with all of the gods, you know, literally more than one god, so there we go. And then Easter is referred to in very different pagan ways throughout the book. I think that she kind of went for like a Alice in Wonderland kind of thing too, with the cats, like, or the humans in cat masks, not cats. Hey, editing me here, and I realized that I forgot to mention that I really do not like the fact that she goes from one abusive, controlling guy to being owned by another controlling guy. And I don't appreciate that as like a storyline. I know young children shouldn't be reading this anyway, so it's more like a fantasy thing. Whatever pickles your gefilte fish, I guess. So how many pages was it?
It's only 50 pages.
Oh, I thought it was like 40 something.
A couple interesting things to note. Don't know exactly what's going on with his face. He has like a weird like fuzzy face. He has whiskers and ears.
So did you like think that Jack was like hot or something?
I'm not entirely sure how much he looks like does he look like a furry? Was my concern the entire book, or like does he look like somebody in the Easter Bunny costume? I could not really tell. I'm gonna be honest, and I wasn't gonna go back and reread this 50-page book to find out.
All right, that's a no.
His schlong is shaped, I assume, like a carrot is probably what the author was going for. Was not a big fan of that, I have to be honest. Also, when he comes, it does taste like marshmallow fluff, so that was an interesting little addition. Let's see, what else? There's also a scene in which, right when she says, like, yeah, like, I'll go have sex with him, she is like, I gotta go get my IUD out, and the old god, like, snaps her fingers, and, like, the woman's, like, IUD appears in her hand, and she throws it, and the IUD turns into, like, butterflies, and I don't really know why the author included that scene. I don't know why that was necessary, but I'm not gonna complain. But anyways, if, Mass Kink, Easter Bunny, public sex is your thing, then, this is for you, man.
Okay.